The top stories of the day. There's a feud brewing between President Trump and his former advisor, Elon Musk, which ramped up yesterday with the two lashing out at each other on social media. I'm Ernie Manouse.
And I'm Celeste Díaz Schurman. We'll also talk with Houston Public Media's newest Associate Vice President and General Manager, Josh Adams, who leads the strategic direction and daily operations of the organization's broadcast and digital platforms.
Plus, we'll also chat with the co-owners of Queen Bee Distilling, a female-owned company committed to focusing on luxury spirits.
And as Ernie, Frank, and I discuss the top headlines of the day, we want your thoughts, your questions, and of course your concerns. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. A public spat between President Trump and tech billionaire Elon Musk is escalating, with both sides continuing to take jabs at each other. The relationship took a turn this week after Musk blasted Trump's massive tax cut and spending bill, calling it a, quote, disgusting abomination. Tech journalist Kara Swisher covered Elon Musk for many years. She tells NPR that his relationship with Trump burned fast and fizzled even faster.
He sort of fell in love quickly, didn't he? He sort of went crazy, jumping up and down, doing the chainsaw thing, dedicating his life, moving into Mar-a-Lago, all this stuff, and shifted rather dramatically because he sort of was somewhat neutral in politics.
Their feud has led to a more than 14% drop in Tesla stock, erasing more than $150 billion in value. The White House says a man from Guatemala who was in the United States without legal status and wrongfully deported has been returned. NPR's Jimena Bustillo reports this is a first for the Trump administration.
The man known as OCG in court records entered the country illegally last year. An immigration judge decided that he would face harm if he were sent back to Guatemala, so he was issued a protection from being deported there. But just days later, immigration officials put OCG on a bus to Mexico, and Mexico then removed him to Guatemala. A federal judge in Massachusetts ordered that OCG should not have been removed to any other country without additional legal steps, and he ordered he must be returned. The courts have also blocked third-country deportations to Libya and South Sudan. The administration has been trying to send people to other countries if their home country exercises its sovereign right to refuse deportation flights. Jimena Bustillo, NPR News, Washington.
The European Union is joining the International Criminal Court in blasting the White House for punishing judges for tribunal investigations. Terry Schultz reports legal communities around the world are criticizing the move, which could impact global justice efforts.
President Trump has slapped sanctions on 4 judges from the ICC in retaliation for their work on the tribunal's probes into alleged war crimes committed by U.S. personnel in Afghanistan and by Israel in the West Bank and Gaza. The judges from Benin, Peru, Slovenia, and Uganda will have any U.S.-based assets frozen. European Commission spokesperson Paolo Pino says the EU remains committed to the ICC.
This court holds perpetrators of the world's gravest crimes to account and gives victims a voice. It must be free to act without pressure.
In February, the Trump administration banned the chief prosecutor and other non-American employees of the court from entering the U.S. and warned of more measures to come. For NPR News, I'm Terry Schultz in Brussels.
On Wall Street, the Dow was up 386 points. This is NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harrop. We could see some hazy skies beginning later today across the Houston area. That's because Saharan dust is approaching the region right now, which could also cause some problems for people who have difficulty breathing. Eric Berger is a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. He told Houston Matters 2 hours ago that the dust is coming off the west coast of Africa.
For most people, it's pretty negligible. You look up and the sky looks a little more milky. But for people who are sensitive to air quality, certainly it has effects. It can aggravate allergies. And so for the next couple of days, if you fall in that category, you should spend a little more time indoors.
Berger's with Space City Weather. He says there are some benefits to Saharan dust. It has the capability of breaking up tropical systems in the Gulf. Overall, temperatures are expected to rise this weekend into the mid-90s. If you're registered to vote in Pasadena or the San Jacinto College District, tomorrow is your last chance to cast a ballot in local runoff elections. News 88.7's Justin Dowd has more.
Pasadena's mayor, 3 Pasadena City Council positions, and a seat on the San Jacinto Community College Board of Trustees are all on the ballot tomorrow. None of the candidates for those positions received a majority of the vote back in May. Just the top 2 are on the ballot tomorrow. You don't need to have voted in May to cast your ballot this time. Any registered voter living in those districts are eligible. 76 voting centers across Harris County will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can find the closest one to you and more information about ID requirements at harrisvotes.com.
That's News 88.7's Justin Dowd reporting. And a 15-year-old boy is in the hospital this morning after he was shot twice by HPD officers overnight. Authorities say the incident took place around 2:40 in the morning in southwest Houston when 2 officers showed up at an apartment complex. They say they then observed several people running around the complex shooting at each other. At one point, authorities say they encountered a male suspect who was armed with a rifle, which is why they discharged their weapons, hitting the suspect twice. Police are still looking for more people of interest. For more news, head to our website. That's HoustonPublicMedia.org. I'm Matt Harrop, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Kauffman Foundation, providing access to opportunities that help people achieve financial stability, upward mobility, and economic prosperity regardless of race, gender, or geography. Kauffman.org.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
Hello.
Happy Friday.
It is.
Friday.
Does anybody ever say unhappy Friday?
No, we made it to Friday. Around here, we're all moving a little slow. Yesterday, we had like our big guests in-house. The station hosted Ken Burns. He came on our show. He had a big event last night at the Hobby Center. We were there in full force to greet him. And it's like after you have a big party at your house, the next day, everyone's just kind of moving a little slower. Yeah. Things seem... But, maybe it's just me. I love after I've had a big party at my house, that time after all the guests have left, and I clean up afterwards.
Sit down,
because all of a sudden my house is even
it.
cleaner than before they got there. Like I put everything away. Not that I don't enjoy having them there, but I feel that way here today. It's like everyone's comfortable now. We had our big guest.
It was easy to find a parking place.
Yes. So I think some people took it a little more relaxing. But anyway, if you didn't get a chance to see Ken Burns on our show yesterday, it is over on YouTube. You can watch the interview there. We always chronicle all of our stuff, archive it at YouTube. All you have to do is go to the Houston Public Media channel. You can see our show. You can see the past interviews, or you can watch us live right now. Just go and find us. Yes.
And there's best of for the weekend.
Oh, and this weekend, best of. So Ken Burns is going to be on that?
Yep. So you can see that on Saturday and Sunday.
Listen on Saturday and Sunday. And I think it's 11 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday.
Correct.
I'm looking for an okay there. Yeah, I assume it's okay. Frank knows. Frank knows everything.
No,
Frank, you know everything. Still keep me in a good mood for the weather.
Because it's going to be hot and hazy and 96. But you know what?
Here's our new joke. Celeste and I came up with this yesterday. You said, hey, I'm Frank Billingsley. It's hot and hazy. Yep. And so I figured Celeste is hot and I'm hazy. So those are our new nicknames.
I'll take it. I'm not arguing with that.
That makes me just not crazy because you two are.
Yes, we are pretty crazy. So hot and hazy this weekend.
It's going to be a little hazy because of the siren dust. Yeah. And it's going to be hot, 92, 93, and feeling like 102, 103. And then by Sunday, 96, feeling like 106. Just add whatever your thermometer on your front porch says, and I'm sure you all have one, just add 10 degrees to that for the feels like number. Because that's a real thing. People say, well, you can't tell me what it feels like. I'm like, no, but heat index is a real thing when you combine temperature and humidity.
When I ask my smart speakers and I say, Alexa, what's the temperature? Mm-hmm. Is it giving me my temperature where I'm at?
Probably not. Probably the closest airport. So probably for you, Hobby.
Okay.
That would be my guess.
Yeah. Is there a big difference between like Hobby, downtown, O'Hare. Wait, over in Chicago. Yeah. That's a Bush,
Yes, especially because we have what we call a heat island. So, I mean, downtown, cement, big buildings, lots of heat just that is generated by that structure that we call Houston. That is what we call a heat island. And that can easily be 4 to 6 degrees hotter than an area, say, like Klein, where it's surrounded by a lot of trees and a lot of shrubbery. So
more importantly, if Celeste is out in her garden this weekend doing her gardening work, be hydrated.
Sunscreen, hydration, a big floppy hat to make you look like you know what you're doing.
I think I will probably be at the pool.
Oh.
But you know where I will for sure be tonight?
Where will you be tonight?
The Tommy Tune Awards.
Coming up in the show, we'll do our last minute plans and all of that. But tonight is the Tommy Tune Awards, where the Houston community comes together to celebrate great achievements in high school musical theater programs, and they give awards, the Tommy Tune Awards. Yesterday, we had Jasmine Amy Rogers on the show, who won a Tommy Tune in 2017. And this weekend, Sunday night, she's up for the Tony Award. A beautiful success story for Best Actress in a Musical on Broadway for Boop. So that's something we'll chat about. We'll be at the Tommy Tunes tonight. And we'll tell you a little bit about our connection to the Tommy Tunes with our executive show producer and his daughter. But we're going to hide that for you. Yes.
Do you like have a Tony's party?
Interesting question.
Really. What does that not really means? Yes, but we're not invited.
Question.
No. That's what that means.
No. What it means is I'm watching it and a couple people come over.
A couple
I told you.
Frank, you're right.
They're going to have pizza. He's going to make
deep
Greek
dish
food.
pizza.
He's going to make a Greek pizza.
I'm going to go to Kroger and buy some fried chicken, and 2 other people are going to be there. One of which
not these two.
Not these two.
One of which is Walt. And he said, I'll probably come late. And I'm like, so it's not much of a party. My friend Jerry and I will sit there and watch it. Oscars, I'll do a lot of people over. Of course, Eurovision, a lot of people.
Eurovision.
Tony Awards, not many people.
Do you like the Tonys?
I love the Tonys.
Should be fun this year. Is the Hamilton cast going to still be original Hamilton cast?
Reuniting.
And what about Patti LuPone? Yes or no?
Oh, she's not going to go. I don't think so.
See, Ernie has the inside.
700 people in the theater community signed a letter saying don't come.
Scarlett O'Hara showed up wearing red.
All right. Well, we'll talk about all of that later on the show. Coming up on the show today, we are excited to introduce to all of you. You know him. You've heard him on the air for years. He's been an integral part of the station, Josh Adams. He is now our Associate Vice President and General Manager. He has taken that role. This is his first week, so we're going to bring him on and grill him. Hello, Houston.
He told me last night, ask anything you want. Anything you want. So if you want to call in and ask about NPR funding and PBS, where we're going with our station, any questions you have,
give us a call. 713-440-8870. But first, it's the headlines of the day. Celeste, lead us off.
President Trump and Elon Musk have been brutally attacking each other in a very public social media feud. Things really wrapped up Thursday as the two lashed out each other on their X accounts. Musk, who has for days been blasting President Trump's big, beautiful mega deal bill, which advances most of Trump's biggest domestic policy priorities. Some of the blowbacks Musk has said is that Trump would have lost the election without his support and called him ungrateful. He also said the reason the Epstein files haven't been released is because Trump is in them. Then President Trump posted that the easiest way to save billions of dollars of government spending would be to eliminate and terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. The public feud seemed to drive a stake through what had been a big money political bromance. Musk, who spent close to $300 million to elect Trump and became one of his closest advisors before leaving the administration last week, suggested it was time to start a new political party. We want to hear from you. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. Did Elon's influence lead to Trump's victory? Should Elon start a third party? And are you Team Elon or Team Trump? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Like the Weiner Party?
I love this
Yikes.
story.
Oh.
I love a good... You put it best, Celeste. It's time for a good summer feud.
I was saying it's a summer feud. Move over, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. We've got a new one here.
It's Trump. So even if it takes up a lot of time, it'll last 2 or 3 days and we'll be on to something else because things move too fast there. I do want to say the latest is that Trump tells ABC, according to ABC, that Musk has lost his mind. That's his latest quick. Not particularly interested in talking to him either.
And I heard he might sell his Tesla, but I didn't know Trump had a Tesla.
He may have one. I'm sure he doesn't drive one.
Well,
Right.
from what I understand, when we're looking at this, I think a lot of people are concerned, and they say, how is this going to affect our economy? How is this affecting President Trump's ability to lead the White House? How much influence did Elon Musk have on this administration?
Right.
And so now we're seeing these two power heads, one of the richest men in the world and the President of the United States of America, in a major feud internally.
And a childish feud.
And a very
and that's what makes it fun. Is
Very.
the childishness
It's a
of it.
divorce.
I do want to say, though,
War of the
even
Roses.
qualified media is split on this. The New York Times says if Elon Musk and Donald Trump make up, don't be surprised. On the other hand, NPR says no going back for Elon Musk after calling for Trump's impeachment.
Oh, I agree.
So which way? Do you think they're going to make up? Or
Michael
go for it?
Cohen says that Trump is going to just eviscerate Musk, that you don't realize how powerful the president of the United States is.
Oh, we realize it. And I think that is the concern.
But you also don't realize the richest man in the world, what he can do.
There are a lot of very, very, very wealthy men in this world that don't want their names out there.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that something about Elon, and a lot of times these very, very, very wealthy men, it's their ego and their reputation that really drives them.
Well,
and
but they don't have the power to deport people. They don't have the power to investigate your tax status.
Right.
They don't have the kind of power that the President of the United States with the Attorney General has.
You know,
I mean, he's a powerful guy.
I find this incredible. As Ernie mentioned, last night we were at this event with Ken Burns, and we got a little sneak peek of the Revolutionary War, his latest historical documentary. And there was the University of Houston archivist, and they had these documents. I mean, some incredible pieces of tangible history that were written in the most beautiful calligraphy with the most beautiful words behind it, shaping our country. And then I wake up and I'm like, well, our president is in a Twitter roar with...
And he writes, loser.
Yes.
Thank you. I was worried you were going to keep that really academic. Thank you for bringing it back to the current.
Nope. Are you Team Elon or are you Team Trump? I mean, it's
Phone
like,
number,
wow.
713-440-8870. Elvin from the 3rd Ward is on the phone. He's got a thought. What are you thinking about this?
Hey, guys. Boy. Hey, is it my birthday or not?
Is it your birthday?
So,
Alvin, I'm going to
got this gift.
Alvin, I want to pull in your excitement here for a minute and think, who do you think's going to win this? Is there a winner in this?
Okay. No, actually. Oh, no. Yes.
Okay.
Here is the winner. The winner is everybody other than Mega. That's who wins. Because these two guys have enough firepower to essentially eviscerate each other. And that is what's going to happen. You see, look, people are talking about, will there be a truce between the two? It doesn't matter. They crossed the Rubicon with each other. They both have followers. They both have followers who will be gunning daily with each other online. So it is on, guys. And check this out. With the particulars that they lay out against each other, with Elon Musk essentially trying to implicate Donald Trump with the Epstein files, for which he can release at any time because he campaigned on it. Remember, we keep saying that, what he campaigned on. So we got that. We got the fact that that Trump essentially told us that Elon Musk has bloat in his by way of his federal contract. And so we got all this stuff going on where they have given up the ghost on all of their shams, where they can no longer talk about being meritorious, etc., because it's all out in the open right now.
Yeah,
Alvin, thank you for your comments.
We have some other reactions.
Hold on, before I want to remind everyone, if you have a reaction, if you have a thought and you want to share it, give us a call right now, 713-440-8870. You can also text us there.
Yes.
You want to take the text?
Sure. And we received a text that says, this is why the government should be off limits to rich, egotistical people leading the country. We need to get back to common people involved in our country. My comment to that is go and vote.
Get involved.
Get involved. involved, find out. And it starts in your backyard. It starts with your local politicians, your local leaders.
Speaking of the backyard, this is from YouTube, from Chris Fitzgerald. Dems, meaning Democrats. Some advice. When the worst person you know gets bitten by a snake, you don't try to befriend the snake. You observe the biting from a considerable distance and enjoy the schadenfreude.
Oh, that's rough.
So, I mean, I'm picking sides is probably not a good idea. I think that's what he's saying, is just watch it, see what happens, because trying to go Team Musk or Team Trump in this feud is not going to get you anywhere.
I was kind of saying that in like a tongue-in-cheek way, but again, I think that this also shows from just a strategic point, from a political standpoint, we look at this, there seems to be a lot of internal issues happening with this administration. And they're doing it in a very public way. And that is, again, how is this feud going to affect, and will it have an effect in our everyday lives? And I think for just the common American, as we look at this, what kind of impact is this going to have on our policy?
Well, the impact is going to be the big, beautiful bill, because Elon is going after that.
Kill the bill.
Kill the bill and impeach Trump. You know, of all the things he said, I think the impeach Trump thing is probably bugging Trump the most.
Well, and
or that the last election was fraudulent.
I think Celeste's point, too, there is this big overall story here that a man with all the money, you know, it's like the golden rule, the man with all the gold makes the rules, right? Can say, just almost like Trump did, that Trump would go into people's districts and say, I support this person and not that person, and this person would win. And now Elon Musk is going into the Senate and saying, if you don't kill the bill, I'm going to go against you. Yeah. And that's the wrong kind of politics, where one person can go in and leverage their money or their power or their fame. And even with rich Hollywood types that go in and try to leverage. I think it's wrong. I think we need to hear what people say when they're running for an office and make up our own minds.
I agree with that, Frank. And I also, bring it back even into our own state. In many ways, a lot of people felt that Governor Abbott did that when we were looking at who he supported in some of those rural county runoffs and elections, in order for him to get his, I think it was SB2 and HB2 passed. His agenda passed, which was school vouchers, which we knew a lot of rural Republicans were very against this. But he went back and funded who would help him.
Yes.
Our number.
And he won.
And he won.
Yes.
Our number here, 713-440-8870. Ajit is on the line from Sugarland. Ajit, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm just enjoying this conversation. It's a privilege to be on this show as well. I was wondering if this is probably a PR campaign. We know the image that Elon has lost in the first few months of this year, the public going really belligerent on him. So I'm not sure if this could be a ploy to get some image back and his reputation set back. You know, the PR companies are pretty inventive and creative. And
I thank you for those thoughts. You know, Ajit, I have seen it hinted at some far-right mega supporters saying that Elon and Trump are playing 4D chess here, and that they know, and that they're doing this intentionally, and it's a game to get what they want. I don't know. I think that's giving a little more credit here than is deserved.
I had that thought, and I think it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to be a MAGA to be thinking that. I did have a moment where I thought, here we are, we're all looking at this, and it's very loud, it's very big. I want to know what's really happening in D.C., because we know that there are a lot of people and staffers and experts in Washington, in the White House, that are working on policy. And here we are looking over here. Yeah. I actually, to be too conspiracy theorist, but we know Steve Bannon has said it in the past, flood the zone, you hit them 1, 2, 3 with a couple of big biting points and the media jumps on it. Yep. Are we doing that?
I would think so, except it became scorched earth with what they're saying. And what I'm watching for is for Trump, because I don't believe someone regulates exactly what Trump puts out. I think he's a little free, and then they do cleanup. I'm wondering when he's going to show his hand and say something to the effect that actually all of the stuff that Doge went after were all policies being held or against Elon Musk, and he didn't go after agencies and stuff that had nothing against Elon Musk and his companies. And if Trump is to go there and say something like that, then that brings into question Trump's abilities to rule. So I'm wondering, is he going to get so angry he's going to say something he shouldn't have said, and it's going to start unraveling things?
We know in past that President Trump has pushed the limits on the things that he says. So to me, that would not be surprising.
That's what I'm watching.
As a mom, I've got to say, this was the writing on the wall. You know, your kids start playing and they start playing and everybody's laughing and it's fun. And then they kind of, one hits one a little hard and then it hits the other hard. And then by the time you know it, they're all crying.
Well, I want to take one more call real quick. It'll be interesting to see if Musk does ban Donald Trump from Twitter, because that's such a huge part of Donald Trump's whole venue, right? Yeah. All right, Sam from Sugar Land. Sam, what you got?
Yeah, hello, sir.
Hello.
My thoughts are like this, that Elon Musk and Trump are both very high achievement individuals. And, they all believe that whatever they do or think, and they want to do it very fast. I think Elon has done a great job in identifying all the areas where there is efficiencies to be sought. He is the person who is obsessed with efficiency. And he is very frustrated because he spent a lot of his time and energy and resources into making this efficient, and then he sees it being not implemented in the best way.
Yeah.
I think that is the grounds for this. I think eventually they will get together and see the light on it, and they will come back together, both of them.
Thank you for that, Sam.
Interesting. So Sam thinks they are going to make up, and that Elon's just frustrated with all the work he's done.
Well, he brings up a point, but a point of clarity that I believe has been talked about already is the fact that there were things that were supposed to be removed from the big, beautiful bill that supported EVs and things like that.
Electric vehicles.
Right, and that they didn't, and that's what set off this feud, because the fees and the car would hurt Tesla. And so Elon got angry about that.
It's a $7,500 tax write-off if you buy an electric vehicle.
But they're taking that away.
Texas used to have one. I don't know if Texas still has one, but theirs was like $2,500 in Texas.
Okay, our producer is saying, go quickly to our
go.
last call,
Okay,
713-440-8870. Greg from Kingwood, what's on your mind?
Hey, guys, is there an opportunity here to get a lawsuit, a case together about money in politics and get it up to the Supreme Court with Citizens United?
Yeah. Maybe this is a learning period for us. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's just money, and it's robbing people of their franchise.
Yeah.
And they know it. Anyway, my comment. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
calling.
Sam.
If you have a thought or opinion on this story, give us a call. We'll be going back to your calls in a little bit. 713-440-8870.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Houston Public Media's newest Associate Vice President and General Manager, Josh Adams. It'll be a conversation you won't want to miss. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
I'm Anita Rao. If you knew in your 20s that you'd develop dementia symptoms within the next 10 years, how would you prepare?
The only way I've found to be able to really tell the story is to say, there's this big thing that I think about every single day, but it's impossible for someone to take in at one time.
Two brothers, one uncertain future. Join us next time on Embodied.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe, R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul, music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
It's more important than ever to stay informed. That's why Houston Public Media delivers well-researched news that's free for everyone.
And right now, your support helps make sure it stays that way. No subscription, no paywall, just news that's here when you need it.
Give today to keep yourself and your community informed, no matter what the future holds.
Make your donation now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from UT Health Houston, home to Dr. Mary Aitken, who is focused on keeping children safe from preventable injuries through research, education, and advocacy. More at uth.edu/manyfaces.
Support comes from the Houston Symphony, presenting John Williams and Steven Spielberg Movie Magic, featuring movie themes from Jurassic Park, Jaws, E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, and more. This weekend, tickets at houstonsymphony.org.
Join us for Hello Houston, weekdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., taking a deep dive into the stories that matter to Houstonians, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained, with a generous support from our founding sponsor, John Bradshaw.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
We're back. Yes, last week we had outgoing Houston Public Media General Manager Lisa Shumate on the show to discuss her career and an icon, her career and her impact that she made on our station. Today, we'd like to welcome Houston Public Media's newest Associate Vice President and General Manager, our friend Josh Adams. Since joining Houston Public Media in 2012, Mr. Adams has served in several roles, including Station Manager, Executive Director of Operations, and Executive Producer. He has played a key role in building strategic partnerships with the University of Houston and driving major technology and infrastructure initiatives, why he was even instrumental in getting this show off the ground. Josh, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you all. This is it's incredible to be here, to be in the studio, the new studios with you guys on the show, and I'm excited to keep the momentum going that we've been pushing the last year to 13 years for me.
If you have questions for Josh, would like to join the conversation, give us a call at 713-440-8870.
Now, Josh, we so often hear about our mission when you hear about public media and Houston Public Media specifically, which is to inform, educate, and inspire. What do those words mean to you?
Well, it's those are catchwords, right? They're catchphrases that are easy elevator pitches to say we inform, we inspire. The reality is what it means to me is that we have to make sure that with every story we cover, with every show we pitch, with every person we interview, we think about it through the lens of somebody in our community. Why is it important to them? Why is it important to the Houston region? We reach all or a portion of 19 counties. So why is it important to the people that they hear this, that they get this message, that they're able to have access to this information so that they can make an informed decision? That's the way I think about it. I think that gives people inspiration. I think they stay informed. And I take that very, very seriously when it comes to how we affect change in our community.
Mm-hmm. I think that's nice because I came from an environment, as a lot of us did, that if it bleeds, it leads.
Right.
But here at NPR and on PBS, that's not the case at all. If it's important, it leads. If it's good, solid information, it leads.
Perspective is important, right, Frank? I mean, that's the key to everything. And if crime is happening in your neighborhood, then it's important to you. Look, I spent a lot of time in commercial news as well, and you see those overnight, we all see them every morning, those overnight crime things. And the first thing you look at is, what are the two cross streets? Was it near my house? How far to my house is that? Yep. And when it's outside some range, you're like, another, But if it's close, you're like, wow, that was at I've been to that HEB. I go to that movie theater, wherever it is. That's the perspective part, right? Well, here, we can kind of take that perspective in as we think about the stories we cover. And so we push, as much as we can push our team to set guardrails. We don't choose stories. We don't say no to stories. I don't write scripts, approve scripts. I don't do any of that. But I do get to help establish the guardrails. And the guardrails are, we're going to have news and information and content that is impactful for our community, for everyone who's watching and listening. And when you set those guardrails, a part of that's an ongoing conversation. Are we achieving it? What do you think, Ernie? What do you think, Celeste? Did we meet it? Did we not meet it? Are they the right guardrails? And so that's the way we think about those stories with how we, set up what we're doing here.
We can get back to mission in a second, but I want to know, this is the end of your first week.
Yeah.
Kind of an interesting first week to take on this.
I had an incredible first week, right? And look, I knew exactly what I was getting into when I signed up for this. All right?
Wait, did you know all those years ago when you signed?
No, not all those years ago, but certainly when last fall when I started really kind of pushing for this. It has been an incredible first week. This is day 5. And in the first 4.5 days of my career as a as an associate vice president and general manager of a major market station. I have had Congress take a bill from the president that's going to potentially rescind our funding, and then 2 days later showcased Ken Burns and the incredible work he's bringing to our community. That's an incredible first 2 days, 3 days, to be able to fight for this community, for good or for bad. And I'm proud to be the one in the seat leading that charge with this incredible group of people in this building.
Bit of whiplash there from one end of it saying that it's not valued, so money is coming away, and on the other side to show the value of what we really give.
Look, I have a strong neck. Right? Whiplash is it's just,
So you brought up the funding. Where do you think this is going to go?
Well, look, there's so many hypotheticals we could go down.
Right.
We're going to trust the process, right? Here's the thing. The bill went to Congress. They're going to evaluate it, and the House is going to vote on it as early as next week, right? If that passes, it'll go to the Senate, where it has to pass as well. And then obviously if it passes the Senate, then the president's going to probably sign his own bill, I would imagine. But the reality is that there's a lot of space in there before our funding is taken away.
But just so people understand, this is our funding that's already in place for the next 2 years.
Congress has already appropriated this money. This money is law.
This is
right?
This is a take back.
And this is a take back. This is the formal process by which they change the law. And so the president and the administration have asked Congress to change the law. And what they've said is, in this $9 billion plus package, we want these cuts. So they send it to the House. The House is going to evaluate it. They're going to vote on it. And if it passes, it'll go to the Senate. If it doesn't pass the House, if it doesn't pass the Senate, if the 45-day clock on this, and there is a 45-day clock which ends sort of July 18, 19, like there's a little bit of like wiggle room on that. But as that runs out, then it becomes it just goes away. We are 2 years forward funded, which means that our next fiscal year, which starts September 1st, and the fiscal year after that, right now are law. This would take those away.
One point of clarity so that the audience understands, and I get asked this all the time,
Sure.
I'm sure you do too.
Sure.
Understanding how much federal funding we get, how we fund our station, and then what it means to different stations across the country.
Sure. So at Houston Public Media, our community services grant, that's the money we get from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, represents about 10% of our budget. That's a little over $2 million, right? So we're a big organization. We are in a big city, a part of an incredible university. And 10% is going to hurt, but we're financially strong. We're going to tighten our belt. We're going to stay lean, and we're going to keep on going. And I say it this way, think about if you woke up one morning and 10% of your budget was just gone, you'd have to change the way that you live, right? Some changes will be small. Some changes might be big. You might not go on a vacation. You might buy different groceries. You might choose to invest differently. That's the position we're in. There are many stations out there, both radio and TV and joint licensees, where their community services grant represents 30, 40, 50, in a couple of cases, 60% of their annual budget. That means if this goes away, they're not going to make payroll in the first months of whatever their fiscal year is, and that would be sort of September, October. For some of them, it might be August. And so that's a real concern if you think about all those stations that are no longer going to be paying dues, are no longer going to be paying into the pot of money that pays for the shows that we enjoy and pay for, both on radio and on TV. So those costs are going to go up. That's a more sort of long tail effect of it. But those are the things that I'm thinking about and trying to position this organization so that we can remain competitive with programming, with staffing, with the content that we do. And look, I've got, vision for big innovations when it comes to how we affect our audience. I've got, big technology plans that I want to be able to invest in. Those are things that are investments in the community. And so I have to be thinking 1, 2, 3, 4 years out to be positioned for that.
And I heard 20% of the nation gets its news from NPR.
So I wouldn't be able to, I can't speak specifically to that percentage point. What I can tell you is that 99% of the population of the United States is covered by public television and radio, right? That is free, over the air, there for everybody. You don't have to have a cell phone. You don't have to pay for cable. You get it. If that goes away, if the funding goes away, that number will get diminished hugely. And so when you think about the services that we do related to news on radio, content, children's programming, education. Then you also layer on top of that public safety. So we're talking about EAS alerts. We're talking about the PBS being the backbone of the federal WEA alerts. All that no longer has 99% coverage. So some of those places, and let's be honest, the smaller communities with less money, they're going to be at risk from all the things that come from having a lack of information, but also all the things that come from having a cut to your public safety infrastructure.
So, Josh, we've been hearing a lot, like you mentioned, about NPR and PBS and the multi-licensing and radio and TV. But the other part that we've been hearing a lot about as well is the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Yeah. Can you give us an update on where we are in that regard and what that means when we hear that the government is essentially looking at pulling back funding as well, what that means for the CPB?
Sure. So when our government established public media, they didn't want to fund programs in journalism directly, right? They didn't want to go tax dollars in Congress because they didn't want to have influence. Yeah. So they created the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a separate, standalone, non-governmental 501c3 nonprofit. So you vote, you go to the polls and you vote. Your senators and congressmen go to Congress with the president. They pass a budget. And if part of that budget is the CPB funding, which is roughly $575 million, that money goes to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, right? An outside nonprofit. And then they spend that money on local stations, radio and TV. If you think about it this way, $550 million annually funds the entire PBS and NPR network for 99% of the people in the United States. That is the most efficient use of dollars there is. We take our $2 million that comes to us, we turn it into $20 million. Mm-hmm. That's a great investment in the community. So the reality is that they are not a part of the government. They have sued the Trump administration, saying that he has no ability to influence their board and and tell them how to spend their money. And PBS and NPR have also both filed lawsuits. So there are 3 lawsuits going around this right now, and the courts are going to weigh in on who's got what ability to influence what.
One more question to this idea of funding, and this may be hypothetical, but it's something I'm hearing.
Sure.
What if Trump hypothetically goes to corporations or to state governments and said, I didn't get the bill passed like I wanted. I didn't get to take away their money, so you're going to. Where are we if that happens?
You know, that's a hypothetical road.
Don't go down that.
That I'm not going to go down. Here's the thing.
I agree, but I have had it come up.
Sure, no, absolutely. And this would be my response to that. No matter what comes down the road, right? We at Houston Public Media are financially robust. We don't have endless money. You know, we're lean with it. We're smart with it. And we'll continue to be lean and smart with it. And that's all the way from funding stays to funding goes or anything in between. We'll keep fighting for the community. We'll keep putting great content on. And we'll keep innovating ways to reach new audiences so we're having an impact.
We are speaking with Houston Public Media's newest Associate Vice President and General Manager. I kind of chuckle always at that because you've been here so long. When we say the new, he's an old hand at this. Josh Adams is with us. Give us a call, 713-440-8870 if you have a question for him.
Now, Josh, you mentioned coming from a commercial TV background, and you made that jump. And what has surprised you most about working in the public media space?
Sure. I tell the story all the time when people ask me that because I do get asked that quite a bit. I've never, and look, my dad was a bankruptcy attorney in North Carolina, and he represented a small independent TV station in Greensboro, North Carolina. They were going bankrupt. When your dad's their lawyer, you get to go work for him. So I started working at a TV station when I was 15 years old, right? And it's all of everything that we love about media, the magic of being behind the camera. So I've been in media a long time in some version or another. I have never worked at an organization where the employees of the organization care about the mission as much as the employees of this building. I wasn't prepared for how just visceral a reaction you get sometimes.
We'll come after you.
When people talk about the mission. And everybody's mission moment is a little bit different. Sometimes it's news, sometimes it's education, sometimes it's content. Sometimes, in many cases, it's just sort of the sense of team, right? Mm-hmm. We're here for the community. We're going to do whatever it takes. And it's that's culture, right? You can't build that. You can't, hire that. That's just ingrained in who you are. And so I'm It's easy to lean into that. It's easy to harness that, and hopefully use it for good. Which is what we're trying to do. That's what we're here for. And so that's probably the piece of my transition that's been the biggest. Television and radio media, that's just media, and it changes and evolves, and it's always fun. P&L is P&L. That's just, trying to, make more than you spend. And we all do that every day. And so that piece is always there. But the mission work, the impact of the community, and how to really measure that, and how to lean into it in a way that's impactful, that's the piece that I really, really have fallen in love with. And, want to leave my fingerprints on in my time here leading the organization.
And I know you're coming in, and you've said it yourself, you're stepping into some very stylish
big shoes, yeah.
That Lisa, and Lisa was very clear, and she was just this incredible leader that made you want to run through walls for her.
Yeah.
What are you going to do to inspire people here at Houston Public Media?
I think a little bit of that I can lean on track record, right? I can say, look, I've worked here a long time. You've worked with me. You've worked for me. We've developed shows. We've developed technology. We've been through crisis. Everything from storms to COVID to, like any business, we have challenges with staff and personnel who have family challenges, and we've been there for that. So that track record is there, and I really sort of stand by that. I think for the people that don't know me, the people in the community who don't know my name or maybe have only heard me, when we're campaigning, what you need to understand is that this responsibility is about servant leadership of this group. It's about making sure that every single day I'm listening, I'm taking in feedback, and I'm getting it from donors, listeners, staff, people in the community, and from the university. And all of that is swirling around to feed informed decisions. And sometimes those decisions are going to be easy. Yep, we're going to go do that, and that's going to be great. And sometimes those decisions are going to be like, no, guys, this is the way we're going because this, with all the feedback, is the best way to go. That's how I want to lead. And when you lead like that, even though you might have moments where people disagree with you, and I hope that's the case. Look, disagreement's a great version of feedback, right? Mm-hmm. It helps you understand your gaps in your thinking. But as you sort of work through, if you're open to that feedback, if you're open to hearing everybody and taking all that in, then you're going to make good decisions, and the people are going to get behind you because they're going to understand why you're doing what you're doing.
The phone number here, if you want to get involved in the conversation, is 713-440-8870. We're going to talk technology in a minute, but just an example of that is you don't have to just call. You can text us.
Please.
That's new for us, too. And we did get a text. Jen from Clear Lake writes, and she says, I'm a member. Is there anything else being done to help? I believe she's referring to the funding. Are there protests or demonstrations of support?
I don't know specifically about any organized protests or demonstrations. What I would encourage you to do is go to HoustonPublicMedia.org. There is a link there for Protect My Public Media. That is the best way to have your voice heard. And look, it's going to prompt you to do a lot of things. It's going to say you can write a letter, you can write an email. It's urgent right now. Call your congressman. Tell your congressman what you think. They're there to serve their constituents, and you are one of their constituents. And tell them, public media means something to me. Public media has impact in my life, and I don't want it to suffer. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage you, HoustonPublicMedia.org. Click that Protect My Public Media link. The instructions are right there. It's really, really easy. And make a phone call. Pick up your phone and do it. You can do it right on your cell phone. Well, I feel like I'm campaigning.
Well, you are. We got to wind up here, but I want to say I think it's you that really led this drive for people to be able to text us, call us, see us on YouTube, be on the radio.
Digital destiny.
I mean, that really all the technology coming together on one platform and meeting people where they are. How are we going to continue that? You have like 20 seconds to tell me.
20 seconds. We are going to continue to develop digital-first products. That's going to be new shows. That's going to be new web. We have a new app coming soon that you guys are going to be excited about. Yep. And we're going to continue to make sure that our robust infrastructure has life cycle management so that we're not having to run around and pay for it. It's all going to be part of the process. I'm excited to share all that, and you guys are going to help lead it. This great team is going to be the one who's forward-facing on it.
I want to give you one example of all of this. Back when COVID hit, it was Josh's leadership that we were all able to broadcast from home. It was the foresight of that, which is what this whole organization does, which really thankful because we weren't caught off guard. As soon as we heard we were closing down, we were already in place to continue to broadcast. And that kind of service you don't find anywhere else.
Listen to your people.
And speaking of service, I think so oftentimes we talk about donors, and I think a lot of young people think, oh, I don't have enough. But sometimes what I love is $1, $5, whatever. And we aren't in campaign, but the truth is we are in a position now where we watch things like documentaries like Ken Burns, and he said it himself. He couldn't be here without him, and we wouldn't be here without you, Josh. So thank you so much.
Thank you all for what you're doing for Houston Public Media and for this community. It's resonating. I'm hearing about the show every single day. So congratulations on how long has it been? 4 months? 4.5 months?
It's only been a little after.
Feels like an eternity, right?
Yeah,
all good
9
things.
weeks.
All good things. Josh Adams is Houston Public Media's newest Associate Vice President and General Manager. Mr. Adams, thank you for joining us.
Thank you all.
After the break, we will hear my latest installment of Cold Coffee. Stay with us.
Some say the greatest gift is to get to know the person you've admired from afar. Others say, never meet your heroes. Well, they can't both be right, so on the next Snap Judgment, we proudly present Jorge, Gina, y Dante. Snap Judgment, storytelling with the beat, cinema of sound. Do not miss it.
Next time on The Pulse, when Terrell Davis started to teach at a preschool with an immersive arts program, she noticed positive changes in her students.
So I knew something was happening.
But what exactly was the it factor here? A scientist decided to find out.
We launched an investigation titled, Can the Arts Get Under the Skin?
We'll explore how creativity works.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV 8, immerse yourself in an unforgettable musical journey with global music superstar Hauser. Enjoy masterful cello performances with Hauser, live at Royal Albert Hall. Tonight at 8:30 on TV 8.
Your right to know what's really going on in our world depends on more than just great journalism. It depends on your participation.
Houston Public Media is funded by Houstonians for Houstonians. 80% of our budget comes directly from you, our community.
That's how trusted information stays free and accessible. No ads, no shareholders, just clear and careful reporting.
Protect your right to stay informed by visiting houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from the Eternal Gandhi Museum Houston, highlighting the power of nonviolent conflict resolution through examples of peace leaders worldwide. Now open. Field trips and group visits available. More at egmh.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. Comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Sure. I just got a comment text. Earlier we were talking and I referred to a smart speaker and I said it by name. And the person said, you set off the smart speaker in my home. Please stop calling it by its name. So we won't say the names of smart speakers anymore.
That's funny. I think we should.
Yeah, just to play around with our listeners.
Yeah, Alexa, what's your favorite radio station?
Frank did it, not me.
Now, Queen Bee Distilling is a woman-owned and operated company committed to making female-focused luxury spirits while also celebrating the beauty of love and nature. With the Queen Bee at the center of their brand, the base of their premium spirits contains raw honey or organic non-GMO sources, meaning that everything is free of gluten, glycerin, chemicals, and more. Joining us now on Hello Houston to tell us more is Catharine Faulconer and Kim Martin, co-owners of Queen Bee Distilling. And if you have any questions for Catharine or Kim, give us a call at 713-440-8870. Welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you.
Who knew that honeybees could make vodka?
Who knew? I know. Thank you for having us.
Okay, now
you heard that? We said the word vodka and our producer put the music in.
These two have a lot more to ask about this. My only one is if it has honey in it, because I'm not a big liquor, alcohol drinker, does it have a sweetness to it or no?
Yes,
that's really one of the first questions we get.
We get that a lot because that does get added to some spirits at the end, and so it will be sweet. But no, that is actually the source of our distilling process. And so you have to have some sort of sugar to start the fermentation and then the distillation.
And how did y'all get into this? What sparked this? I want to make luxury spirits.
Well, it was really Catherine's idea. We were kind of came out of necessity. Catherine has.
You needed some vodka?
Yeah,
we did. Absolutely. Yes.
But she has autoimmune issues. So it really kind of made drinking vodka a little difficult. Really, if she can't have grain or gluten or any sort of nightshades or anything genetically modified, it knocks out almost all of the
spirits.
So did you Google this? Who came up with honey?
That was Catherine's idea. She didn't tell anybody until during COVID. We were playing Mahjong, and we were all like, Catherine said, let's make a vodka from honey. And we all thought that was a great idea.
Absolutely. So what happened is because I had to take everything out of my diet, and I was like, I still want to have a drink. And so I was asked the bartender, I go, okay, I need a martini really bad. And I need it, but it has to be free of all grains, nightshades, which is potatoes, and genetically modified corn. And he looked at me and he goes, oh gosh, I can't help you. So Frank, that's really kind of what started it.
You know, Siete Chips is the same thing. And now it's $1 billion business. So you might be my new richest best friend.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so.
I'll
still be your friend.
I was at Bari Restaurant and your rep was there.
Yes.
And recognized me and said, hey, you want to try a new vodka? And it's made from honey. I'm like, sure. And I drank it straight up and it was delicious.
What does female focused mean to you all?
Oh, that's a
great question. And the answer to that for us, and it may not be for everybody, but if you go into a liquor store, predominantly it is for men, or it feels that way.
Yes.
And so it seems like the labels are for men, or the bottle, or the brand vibe.
The vibe
and
is
so
male.
we wanted women to go in and feel comfortable. And so, and when you get on our Instagram feed, we make drinks. And so women are back there in their own bars and they're like, oh, I feel very comfortable pouring this and making a martini, or
it's like the skinny margarita.
Or even that. We even have on our website how to make a margarita with vodka.
Yeah. So, Catherine, did you set out to be an entrepreneur getting into this space?
The look on there, if you're not watching on YouTube, that was an expression worth seeing.
I mean, because now you are essentially running a business. I mean, it's
the two
we
of us.
see you both and we think, well, this is fun. But really, to get a product out in the market, the bottling portion of it, looking at your budget, you have to have revenue. So as a female-owned business, what did that look like for you?
I don't think either one of us started out for this.
And in fact, we started it during COVID, and we didn't tell anyone. So we took about 5 years to actually bring our product to market. And the reason why we did it, another reason, is we were both becoming empty nesters. And what we didn't say is we both grew up in Tyler, Texas. We have been friends since we were in kindergarten and first grade. And in fact, for a while, we were next door neighbors.
Just 12 years.
Just a few years. And so when no one else wanted to do this journey of spirits, I was the one that said yes. And so we went out, we learned how to distill in Denver, and we came back to Houston thinking, you know what, let's just see if we can do this. If anything, we're making it for ourselves.
Well, how's it going? Are you in specs yet?
We are.
So
we're
you've made
specs.
it. If you're in specs, you've made it.
We've been out for 1 year.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. And if there's somebody out there, a young woman who says, you know what, I'm in this space in my business, I'm not sure what to do, or I would like to start making something myself, how can people reach out to you, to get some of that advice?
Oh my gosh, we are happy to give advice. I love to talk.
Over maybe a martini?
No, actually, you can always just DM us on Instagram, or you can go on our website and you can fill out the form on our website, and I check that every day.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Let's make a drink.
Catharine Faulconer and Kim Martin are the co-owners of Queen Bee Distilling. Catharine, Kim, thank you both for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll dive back into today's top stories. And boy, there's a lot to talk about. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from the Houston Symphony, presenting John Williams and Steven Spielberg Movie Magic, featuring movie themes from Jurassic Park, Jaws, E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, and more. This weekend, tickets at houstonsymphony.org.
88 degrees at the University of Houston. This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Live from Houston Public Media and
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. House Speaker Mike Johnson is weighing in on the ongoing feud between President Trump and tech billionaire Elon Musk. Speaking on CNN, Johnson urged the two sides to tamp down the rhetoric.
I can just say he was disappointed. I mean, he said that himself, and I was as well. But look, I believe in redemption. I hope we can resolve it and get everybody together again. That's really important for all of us.
The relationship took a sharp turn this week after Musk blasted Trump's massive tax cut and spending package, calling it a, quote, disgusting abomination. The bill is projected to add an estimated $2.4 trillion to the national deficit. A federal judge says the service agency AmeriCorps must restore its programs in 24 states. They were gutted by the Trump administration. But as NPR's Jennifer Ludden reports, the decision is only a partial victory for the service agency.
The judge agreed with 24 Democratic-led states that AmeriCorps did not follow proper procedure in dismantling its programs. The agency ended grants and abruptly fired tens of thousands of mostly young service members who work in schools, national parks, and communities hit by disaster. Programs in the states that sued could now be restarted, but the judge declined to block the firing of about 85% of AmeriCorps staff. She said it was too speculative to argue that the agency could not function without those jobs, and she said states made an unfounded assumption that those employees could return smoothly to the jobs they held before. Jennifer Ludden, NPR News, Washington.
Jury deliberations are resuming today in New York City in the retrial of Harvey Weinstein. The disgraced movie producer is facing sexual assault charges. The retrial follows the overturning of his 2020 conviction due to procedural errors. He was convicted of similar crimes in a separate case in California. Stocks opened higher this morning as the Labor Department reported a modest slowdown in hiring last month. NPR's Scott Horsley reports.
U.S. employers added 139,000 jobs in May, down slightly from the previous month. Job gains for March and April were revised down by a total of 95,000 jobs. There was a sizable drop in the workforce last month as 625,000 people stopped working or looking for work. The unemployment rate was unchanged at 4.2%. Many of the jobs added in May were in healthcare and hospitality. The manufacturing sector cut 8,000 jobs last month, and retail employment fell by 6,500. Average hourly wages in May were up 3.9% from a year ago. Wages have been climbing faster than prices for the last 2 years. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
Stocks continue to trade higher on Wall Street at this hour. The Dow was up 306 points. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. State Representative Jolanda Jones has declared she's running for the congressional seat left vacant since the death of Democratic Congressman Sylvester Turner in March. News 88.7's Andrew Schneider says that brings the field of candidates for the November election to at least 20.
The dominant candidates in the burgeoning field up to now have been Harris County Attorney Christian Menefee and former Houston City Council member Amanda Edwards.
While Harris County Attorney Christian Menefee remains well-positioned as a leading contender, his path to victory is no longer assured.
That's political scientist Michael O. Adams of Texas Southern University.
Jones' entry introduces a new dynamic, particularly amongst black voters, where she holds significant name recognition and a loyal base from her years serving on the Houston City Council, the Houston Independent School District Board, and also her service recently in the Texas State Legislature.
Menefee and Edwards had each raised close to $400,000 as of the end of March. I'm Andrew Schneider, News 88.7.
A 15-year-old boy is hospitalized after he was shot twice by HPD officers. Assistant Chief Luis Menendez-Sierra says the incident took place around 2:40 this morning at the 8300 block of Cinnamon Lane when two officers showed up at an apartment complex where gunshots had been reported.
As they were walking, they separated and then immediately started hearing gunshots going off. They then observed several people running around the complex shooting at each other. At one point, they encountered a male suspect who was armed with a rifle and discharged their weapons twice, striking the suspect twice.
The 15-year-old ran into a nearby apartment, but his parents later flagged down officers asking for medical help. Menendez-Sierra says there are numerous shell casings around the apartment complex, and they are looking for multiple suspects involved in the shootout. It's currently 88 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Made in Cookware. Made in Cookware is crafted by chefs for chefs and designed for restaurants and home kitchens around the world. Their cookware can be found at madeincookware.com. This is NPR.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
Friday afternoon.
It is Friday. And, yesterday we had such a quick, kind of fun show. I feel like we're having one of those again today.
I thought you were going to say, today is so slow.
Kevin just sent me a picture when we were at Bari. I said we had Queen Bee, and I didn't know he took a picture of it. There it is on our YouTube if you want to go to YouTube and see a picture, if they show it. But it's a beautiful bottle. I mean, the bottle alone, you could turn into a perfume bottle.
And, I was talking to them, and she basically said, we didn't get to have a chance to really get into it, but it was, the label was designed by a woman, the bottling company. She talked about the importance of mentorship and friendship.
You should have them for cold coffee.
I really should.
There's a whole 20 minutes there that we didn't have time
Or maybe a cold martini.
Well, both.
Cold
Why not?
Yeah. Change the name. Yeah, but when we first heard about them, a friend of mine mentioned this script, and I thought, a woman entrepreneurs inside the spirits world. I'm curious how rare that is, that they were a startup, came out of necessity. All of those stories make for a great entrepreneurial women's empowerment
we should have my friends, their friends and family from Helena, Arkansas. And because my family's from Helena, the Thomas family. And they are an African-American family with their own farm. They've developed Delta Dirt, which is Delta Dirt vodka. They make it with their own sweet potatoes and corn. They've developed Delta Dirt whiskey and Delta Dirt gin. And talk about a success story in Arkansas. It's just, they're doing so well. And it's the kind of people that you like hearing about.
Absolutely.
Success in this country, especially when we're facing some really weird stuff in this country right now.
And Celeste, we did get a comment about the Queen Bee. on the YouTube?
Yes, we received a message on our YouTube comments from Wine Goddess, Texas. It says, love Catharine and Kim, great vodka, and generous supporters in the community. Denise Elric, Women of Wine Charities. Yes. I think that's also important, right? Anytime people start to become successful or are able to do something in a successful way, that they give back to their community. So that's awesome.
Now, earlier, speaking of somebody who gave back to his community, Elon Musk spent some time giving to the government or taking away, depending on how you look at it. And we were talking in the first hour about the feud that has erupted between the president and Elon Musk, and it's gotten downright dirty. We got a couple comments on that. Frank, do you want to share those with us?
Sure. One is off-air. Chip from downtown says, what I'm experiencing is a profound sadness that the most powerful man in the world and the richest man in the world are behaving like school children. That's sort of an insult to school children, though, don't you think? They're better behaved than these two right now. And the sadness comes from me recognizing my own naivete across the United States, about the United States. Perhaps it's always been this way, more hidden from view, and that worries me about the future of the United States.
Interesting, good point. It's a rare situation, though, that you have, at least publicly, like he's saying, the president of the United States, arguably the most powerful man on the planet, and the richest man on the planet going at it publicly.
And to your point, Erastus from Katy says, I believe as of now, Elon is more powerful than the president for two reasons. X and Doge. You keep your closest allies and enemies in line by having an edge over them. Doge had access to every government computer to find waste, but to look for leverage. And I'm sure Elon got a lot for every government worker, including all representatives. Wow. So, yeah, knowledge is power, and he may have gotten that.
And this is interesting when we look at historically, and we should maybe perhaps have a presidential historian looking at how presidents pick advisors and cabinets, because oftentimes you hear of these departments, Department of Homeland Security, now we have Doge, and they pick experts, research, policymakers that don't want to be in the headlines. They are experts, and the president says, okay, go, and I trust you. I'm delegating. You are the expert in this field. Mm-hmm. You tell, I'm looking to you. Here, the president picked lots of very wealthy, very powerful people. Supporters, who, if I'm giving you money, I want my influence.
If you have a thought on this story, give us a call at 713-440-8870. The other part of it that I just want to re-mention, Musk spent close to $300 million to get Trump elected. Imagine you take that $300 million and work against Trump with it. What would be the impact? And then when you go out into the races, as Frank was talking about earlier, into different Senate and congressional races, what kind of upheaval of the apple cart, I guess is the expression, he could cause, and to get what he wants.
And we may find out.
Maybe Elon will cut a big check to the CPB.
Just to get, if you want to get Trump mad, write a big check.
He could give the public broadcasting $10 billion and fund us for the rest of time.
There you go.
No, really,
Elon,
that interest alone.
This is your call out from Houston Public Media.
While we're still in the headlines section, I know coming up, Celeste, you're going to have cold coffee, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. It's going to be really exciting. And really informative.
And today is National Gun Violence Awareness Day, and Shannon Watts started Moms Demand Action after the Sandy Hook shooting back in 2012. So it was very timely and very interesting.
But let's get on to the headlines of the day.
Texas has officially ended its decades-old policy allowing undocumented students to qualify for in-state tuition rates at public colleges and universities. The move follows a lawsuit from the U.S. Department of Justice, which argued the policy discriminated against U.S. citizens by offering lower tuition rates to non-citizens. Since its enactment in 2001, the law enabled undocumented students who met specific residency requirements to pay the same tuition as Texas residents, significantly less than out-of-state fees. Now these students face paying more than double the tuition and fees, putting higher education out of reach for many. What are your thoughts on this policy change? Is this fair or not? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Thoughts?
I think it's mean. I do. I think it's just a spiteful.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just a spiteful thing to do because these are kids who, a lot of them, they may not be fully citizens, but they, they've been here contributing in a lot of ways to the state. And what they're saying is, even though you're here and we're allowing you to be here, you're not really a citizen of Texas. So you got to pay, just like if you're trying to come to a state school, but you're from Alabama. You're going to be charged out-of-state tuition because even though you live here, we don't really look at you as living here. I think it's just mean.
Well, I think it's
really
really
we've lost our heart.
What stood out for me is you using the word mean. In all my years, I look at, and there's plenty of them, I look at legislation and you agree with it or disagree or think it's ill-advised or unwise or smart and successful. Rarely do I hear words like mean put into play. And I feel like a lot of the policy we see is vindictive, mean-spirited, used for leverage. It feels like we've lost the sight of legislating for what's best for people and using legislation as a weapon. Do you agree or disagree with me? 713-440-8870. Celeste, your thoughts on this whole topic, though?
Again, I'm going back to Ken Burns because last night we had a dose of history, right? How the United States of America was conceived and the conversations that were happening by our founding fathers. And we look at the way our government and our country was made from a certain lens of a little bit of rose-colored and about democracy and how they wanted democracy to be. I can't imagine taking away the opportunity for people to be educated in this country. Just a little personal anecdote, my parents have always said there are two things that somebody can never take away from you, and that is your education and your spiritual life. And so to me, when we look at this, that it is the policy discriminates against U.S. citizens. Who exactly is it discriminating? I mean, you mentioned about somebody coming from out of state. I just find this, honestly, kind of, it makes me angry. It might seem like I'm angry, but I just have so much. How can you take that in-state tuition? Because let's look at the books and see who really is going.
Well, you make an interesting point there, too. Another one here is the fact that if you live out of state and you move into Texas, how long before you are considered a resident?
I think it's it depends on the school, right. And I believe some have 6 months to 12 months out of state tuition. So if you are undocumented,
but you've lived in the state longer than that period of time, how then are we discriminating against anybody else who's chosen to come and live in Texas?
Right. You've been in a high school here. Your whole education is a Texas education. But now, no, you're not a U.S. citizen, so therefore you have to pay out-of-state costs.
And this is what's so interesting. And we had an immigration lawyer who was discussing this immigration is so complex, this complexity. And I realized in that moment, we use the word undocumented, but your status to be in this country there are so many fluid variables. Like some people have working visas, some people have student visas, some people are waiting for their visa to be renewed.
Right.
And so just to do this blanket, it's unfortunate.
Well, let me add one more thing to what your parents told you. Yeah. One thing that people will try to take away from you is your dignity. Mm-hmm. Don't let anyone do that, no matter who you are, what color you are, what sexuality you are, what gender you are, or transgender you are. Keep your dignity close to your chest.
Absolutely.
And for point of reference, too, as Celeste continues to talk about Ken Burns, and you may feel left out, don't worry. Coming in November, this series that we've been talking about, he was here to promote The American Revolution, which will be the new Ken Burns limited series. It's 12 hours over 6 episodes. It's going to air in November, and you'll all get a chance to see that. And what we learned last night was when the first episode airs on TV on that Sunday night, all of them will be available on the PBS app and PBS.org.
Yes.
We got a call from Jay on the north side.
Yes.
Jay, what's up?
Hey, good morning, guys. Oops, maybe I need to put my phone on private. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. What's on your mind?
Yeah. I teach at Lone Star on the north side of town, and that I have students who are not documented, and it's heartbreaking to watch them tear up as we're sitting in classes and we begin talking about this issue. where they have to get up and walk out. And these are students whom, other than perhaps their legal status, you would just assume a regular, plain old all-American kids, because they are.
Thank you.
Because they are.
I agree, Jay.
And so to think that some of them who are already struggling to make ends meet will be denied being able to contribute, the intelligence and the perseverance and the spirit and all that they are to our American society, that's heartbreaking, not just for them, but for us as a society. And what do we think happens in a society where people are uneducated and where you deny people education? Then what do they do? What do they not do? So, as again, from the front lines, up here at Lone Star, and just really seeing and dealing with kids like that every day.
That's a great perspective, Jay. Thank you.
Jay.
You have to give people hope. And to that story, before we leave it, there was this 2001 law enacted to give them the same rights as far as the tuition. So this was on the books as, okay, we're going to do this. And now, because of what's going on in this country, we're going to take it away.
Yeah. If you have an opinion, thought, feeling about this story, please give us a call, 713-440-8870. Jay, thank you for that call. But also, it brings up the point, it's not a free ride. They're not saying it was free tuition. They're saying just put them on the equal playing field as others who live in this state. That's it.
Agreed. And this is the thing, is they're not, I don't know, but I'm going to assume Jay works at Lone Star Community College. We're talking about community colleges. You're not looking at these kids that, and some might be, but that are taking a full load. A lot of these kids are working. Like he said, they're trying to make ends meet. They're trying to figure things out. And so I think Frank said it best. It's mean.
It is mean.
Yeah. Moving on from there, remember, you can call us, text us, or email us with your thoughts on the story. For calling and text, 713-440-8870. Email, I don't think we've given that in a while. It's just talk@hellohouston.org. Okay, ready for this? Today is National Donut Day. A day I think we should... no one brought in donuts. I was going to bring in donuts when I realized, but I forgot.
Well,
yeah. It is National Yo-Yo Day, so I came to work. Also, a couple little news tidbits to give you. The president ordered an investigation into his predecessor, Joe Biden, claiming his aides covered up his cognitive decline.
Lord. Talk about
Leave him
mean.
alone.
Everybody's in cognitive decline.
Tomorrow, if you're looking for something to do over the weekend, tomorrow in Texas is annual Free Fishing Day. I was hoping it would mean something else, that I could go to a restaurant and get free fish, but no, you can fish in any public waterway in the state without a license.
Wow. No angler's license required.
No.
I do want to mention this tidbit you're talking about. Today is the 81st anniversary of D-Day. I mention that because without the proper weather forecasts, and that would never have happened. The meteorologists that were part of that played a huge role in D-Day.
Yes, as Frank said, today, 81st anniversary of D-Day. In his famous speech ahead of the invasion of Normandy in 1944, General Dwight D. Eisenhower told troops, "The eyes of the world are upon you."
Google it.
Yeah, and the eyes of the world are still upon all of us here.
Yes, they are.
That's right.
The eyes of Texas may actually be on Texas Representative Yolanda Jones, because she took to social media on Thursday to announce a bid for U.S. Congress. The deadline for candidates to file to run is September 3rd. So if you're thinking about it, you got a little time. 3 other candidates have already expressed interest in the race: Amanda Edwards, Isaiah Martin, and Christina Menifee. So
Christian
Menifee. We had Chris on.
Yes.
And we had Amanda Edwards on.
Yes.
Yep.
Isaiah,
right.
it's up to you. You haven't been on yet.
Yeah, if you want to come on, just let us know.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we will hear the latest edition of my podcast, Cold Coffee, with advocate and author Shannon Watts, about her upcoming book, Fired Up: How to Turn Your Spark into a Flame and Come Alive at Any Age. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Houston Public Media exists for and by the will of Southeast Texas. We appreciate our visionary supporters for enabling us to be the essential source for independent journalism and programs that inform, inspire, and engage all Houstonians. Angela Bishop, Judy and Dr. James Bozeman, Andrea B. Bryant, Kathy Butler, the Michael and Rebecca Simo Foundation, Janet F. Clark, Marion and Paul Cones. Thank you.
I'm Maria Hinojosa. Next time on Latino USA, a pregnant woman sues the Trump administration for her baby's right to birthright citizenship.
Es que creo que es el derecho que tiene mi bebé porque primero está en la Constitución.
That's next time on Latino USA.
Tune in Sunday at 7 on News 88.7.
Houston Public Media brings to you PBS World. Experience the personal connection behind the headlines with programming devoted to telling stories that humanize complex issues. PBS World on TV 8.6 and online at houstonpublicmedia.org.
What you hear on this station, every report, every interview, every update, is only here because someone like you gave.
80% of Houston Public Media's funding comes from Houstonians like you. Our newsroom runs on support from you, our community.
You have the right to know what's going on, and you have the power to make sure others do too.
Join the community right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from UT Health Houston, home to Dr. Mary Aitken, who is focused on keeping children safe from preventable injuries through research, education, and advocacy. More at uth.edu/manyfaces.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
When you feel enraged about something that has happened or is happening in your world, your community, where do you turn? So many people say, turn off the news, go out and vote, run for office. But what if you just can't wait another minute? You just feel that burning inside of you. My next guest on today's episode of Cold Coffee found herself in that place December 14th, 2012. While being a stay-at-home mom of 5, she watched breaking news like the rest of us of 20 children and 6 educators who were gunned down in their classroom at Sandy Hook School in Newton, Connecticut. Shannon Watts is the founder and former president of Moms Demand Action and now author of Fired Up, How to Turn Your Spark into a Flame and Come Alive at Any Age. Today is National Gun Violence Awareness Day, and we also just hit our 3-mark year since Uvalde Elementary School shooting in Texas. As someone who has championed for gun violence so publicly, what does this day mean to you?
You know, I never imagined that I would end up being a gun safety advocate, but after the horrific shooting tragedy in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, I couldn't help but get off the sidelines. You know, after 20 children and 6 educators were slaughtered in the sanctity of an American elementary school. And sadly, that was just, you know, one of many, including Uvalde, that would follow. But it is important to remember that we have made incredible progress in this country. You know, I founded Moms Demand Action not to be anti-gun, but to just restore the responsibilities that should go along with gun rights. And we've passed 500 gun safety laws in the last decade. We've elected thousands of gun sense champions to office. And so it's really important to remember that, you know, this work is difficult. You're going up against a very powerful special interest, but it is effective. And we all deserve to live in a country where gun violence is not the #1 cause of death among children in America. We have to make it safer for everyone, for all families and for all communities. And that's what this day is really about.
And why do you feel like you were the one? What professional and personal skills did you have that suited you to be the one to pick up this torch? And not just pick up this torch, but be successful in your advocacy?
Well, to be clear, you know, I knew little to nothing about gun violence, organizing, the legislative process. I was just a really angry mom living in Indiana at the time who kind of saw Mothers Against Drunk Driving as the prototype for how do women and moms rise up and take action, get off the sidelines, use their voices and their votes. I think in large part because I had been a communications executive for over a decade, I knew how to create a brand, to tell a story, to craft a message. And that was really important to make women feel empowered, to make them feel like they could stand up against a special interest. Thankfully, women, mostly women from across the country who had so many different skills, from legal skills to organizing skills to website development, all of it they brought to me and brought to the table, and really are the reason that Moms Demand Action has become the largest women-led nonprofit in the nation.
As the founder, where were you most effective in linking advocacy and policy to affect change?
Well, as I said, we have passed over 500 gun safety laws in this country, and that's in red and blue states alike. When we talk to Americans, we know that there's huge agreement and common ground on what will keep us safer. Things like background checks, secure gun storage, keeping guns out of the hands of domestic abusers. This is low-hanging fruit that we can all agree on as Americans, that we have to keep guns out of the hands of people who have dangerous histories. And so that's really where we've made so much progress in this country, in red and blue states alike. Sometimes you're playing defense and you're stopping bad bills from passing, but very often when you do the hard work, you end up being able to pass good gun laws that keep all Americans safer. And we're seeing that in the data. We're seeing gun violence in many ways decrease. That is a good sign, but there's still a long way to go.
And it's interesting that you say there's still a long way to go because, more than ever, grassroots advocacy is needed. But I think that many times people feel helpless and aren't sure exactly where to start. They know they want to do something. They're just not exactly sure how. And what is your advice to them? And I love that you talk about how you were a stay-at-home mom at that time, because I think we so often look at the success mountain and we see everybody on the other side of it. We see the 10 million followers and the movement, but we didn't see that at that moment you weren't the executive when you started this. You were a stay-at-home mom. You didn't have the title. You were in your living room folding laundry as you watched breaking news happen, like every other American, like so many moms that are at home right now watching the news and are saying, I would love to do something. They feel that fire that you talk about in your book. Where can people and women specifically start?
Well, that's exactly why I wrote my new book, Fired Up, because I am not a unicorn. All women in this country have skills, to bring to the table. And it's really this formula that I have found, not just with myself, but kind of holding the hands of thousands of other women and walking them through that door, which is your abilities, your values, and your desires. And when those three things combine, and they're unique for each of us, I think it's like alchemy, right? It helps you figure out the way forward, how you can get involved. And, Alice Walker, the poet and author, has said that activism is the rent I pay to live on the planet. So it doesn't matter what issue is calling you or what speaks to you. And maybe it's not even politics, right? It may be professional, it may be personal, but we all have these unique abilities, values, and desires that we can bring to the table and affect change in some way. That may be just having the hard conversation you wanted to have for a long time, or it may be asking for a promotion, or it may be starting an organization. But given the state of the world right now, we need every woman to feel fired up. We need them to know what makes them come alive, and we need them to act on it.
And so I want to go back really quickly. So you started Mothers Demanding Action in 2012, and then you stepped back in 2023. Why did you take a step back in that moment?
I really believe that power should be finite. When I started Moms Demand Action, I thought, this is not going to be forever. There are other things I want to do with my life. I was 41 years old, but I thought I will do this as long as I need to. I was a full-time volunteer, ended up being for 11 years. And, for the first few years, the answer was obviously no, it's not time to step back. Then as the years went on, it was maybe. And then finally, I was standing in the Rose Garden in 2022. President Biden was signing the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act into law. It was the first federal gun safety legislation passed in a generation, and it was in large part because of the horrific shooting tragedy both in Uvalde and in Buffalo. And I just knew that was the bookend to my activism, that it was time to hand the torch over to another woman who would lead the organization, and that I had other things to do. I didn't realize that would be immediately starting to write a book, but I'm just incredibly grateful to be able to talk to other women about this idea of, we have so much life now. We don't have to disappear, when we turn 50, and we can start whole new chapters and burn until the very end of our lives. And so, I interview over 70 women for this book, and the stories of women becoming published authors and going back to law school and starting new companies, all in the later halves of their lives. To me, that is incredibly inspirational, and it's what I want to keep doing after this book and beyond.
So did you find that this movement that you were a part of, you pivoted and you decided to start mentoring women. You decided you were going to write this book. And in the book, you write, I was at a crossroads in my life, and no matter which direction I chose, there would be serious consequences. What crossroads were you at, and how did you ultimately, you were ultimately inspired to write Fired Up?
I think, like so many women, I was living on autopilot. I was in a marriage that wasn't working for me. I was in a career I didn't love. And I just thought, I'm stuck here and I can't go after kind of what I thought the life I would be living was. And what I have learned in my career and my activism is that men are often taught to follow their desires and women are taught to fulfill their obligations. And we have to go through life asking ourselves, what do I want? I really want women to be thinking about that. And that becomes a practice. And when I put this formula into practice, as I said, values, abilities, and desires, it changed my life. I ended up leaving my marriage and, we ended up being great co-parents. I eventually found the love of my life. I founded Moms Demand Action. I got to work shoulder to shoulder with other women and really found my people and ultimately my fulfillment. And I have seen so many other women through Moms Demand Action do the same. And I think we just need to talk more about what is it like to live more bravely? What kind of blowback will you get and how do you navigate it? How do you get through the messy middle? There's so many times that I wanted to turn back.
Sure.
And then, how do you use that fire that you eventually start to find your people? And I just think that's another important part of midlife, which is having other women friends. And, I didn't find that out until I was in my 40s and even 50s. And it's changed my life for the better.
Totally. And you talked a little bit about setbacks and, what kind of setbacks and fears did you experience making that transition and going into this new space of mentoring women and working with women to find their passions and their fire, that perhaps maybe you had doubts? What did those look like to you?
There are common emotions that are triggered whenever you start to live differently, right? You may want to do less, you may want to do more, but ultimately, if you decide to do differently, you are going to have people who are questioning what you're doing. That may not be the blowback that I got. I started getting threats of death and sexual violence immediately when I started Moms Demand Action. But maybe, someone's going to make a offhand comment in the pickup line at your kid's school about the fact that you missed a soccer game because you were pursuing what you wanted. And when you have those feelings of guilt and shame, those lead to imposter syndrome and perfectionism and wanting to disappear, all these very common kind of archetypes that women experience. And so I name all of those in the book. And, when you live audaciously, the blowback is predictable, but it is not it is not personal. And I do ultimately think your ability to live audaciously, your ability to grow your fire is directly proportional to how much blowback you can withstand. And this is in many ways a handbook that says, this is the kind of blowback you're going to get. Here's how you handle it. Here's how you get through it. I talk to women so often who feel like they're held to this incredibly high standard. And maybe society is doing that. Maybe they're doing that to themselves. But if we continue to kind of fall back in those patterns, we never move forward.
And it's interesting, the title of the book is Fired Up. Why fire?
It's funny. I had all of these self-help books that I thought were so interesting, and I brought them to my friend's house who's an author, and she said, these are great, but they're not very interesting. You are a fiery personality.
Yes.
And when she said fire, that just really spoke to me. I mean, it is a metaphor.
Yeah.
Living on fire is this idea of, figuring out two things: what's holding you back and what's calling you. And then deciding to move forward with either removing the things that in your life that are holding you back and really following those things that are calling you.
And you talked a little bit about these key components, women's values, and there's three key components to this. Walk me through those three key components, and how can a woman find her own values, her ethos?
Well, I am having a discussion in Houston with Brene Brown, who's really the North Star of values and helping us understand the research behind who we are and what motivates us. And so your values are going to change throughout your life. When I started Moms Demand Action, my values were protecting my family and community. I'm an empty nester now, so my values are different. And so really taking stock of who am I, what is meaningful to me, and what are my values right now in my life. Then your abilities, right? Those can be innate, they can be acquired. And I think it's important. There are a lot of exercises in the book that help you realize what your abilities are. So often we don't know. And I think as women, we underplay our abilities. And so asking other people what they see our abilities, and then deciding, okay, maybe there's some skills I need to acquire to eventually go after what I want. And then finally, desires, right? The desires are things that are inside you that you want to explore before the end of your life. And I think sometimes we think life is infinite. And when we start to realize that maybe the obligations or the shoulds in our life are overtaking the desires. When I talk to these 70 different women from my book, so often when I ask them what they're afraid their deathbed regret will be, it's that they didn't live a life that was authentic or true to them. And I don't want any woman to get to the end of their lives and feel like they didn't burn. So when you have your values, your abilities and desires, they come together. This is the formula for living on fire. You're going to have to keep practicing it, right? Just like starting a fire. It doesn't happen always the first time you try. And you put it into practice and eventually you will. And it is often when you get that perfect combination, it is like touching the divine. And that's what it was like for starting Moms Demand Action.
I found this also so interesting. You write that purpose is often mistaken with other qualities like passion and happiness. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I talk about what are false fires in my book. Often purpose, we're told we're put on this earth to do one very specific thing. And if we don't accomplish that somehow our lives are a failure. I think we need to decide, are we living for a purpose or are we living on purpose? And that in my mind isn't purpose, it's fulfillment. The other false fire is often happiness, this idea that we're always trying to be happy and achieve that. I think that is mistaking an obligation for a fire. And then finally, busyness. And I know I'm guilty of this as much as anyone. This idea of we're just busy and productive, that is somehow finding fulfillment. And I don't think any of those things are true. I think it's what we're sold to keep focusing on our obligations. I mean, imagine if women lived their lives asking themselves, what do I want? Governments would topple, institutions would fail, family systems would fall apart. And so we have to remember that we are in charge of deciding, if our lives are authentic and audacious to us.
What myths about success, achievement, and happiness do you hope to debunk in this book?
I think women, again, start to often mistake their obligations for their desires. And they get to the end of their lives and realize, that they didn't end up being able to pursue the desires that they had in their heart. Another interesting conversation I had with women for this book was they have a great fear, almost all of them who were mothers, that if they pursue something that's important to them, it will be at the expense of their children. And, this is a myth that we perpetuate to make women feel guilt or to feel shame. I now have adult children. I'm on the other side of that chasm. And I can promise you that none of them say to me, oh, I can't believe you didn't go to that soccer game in 2006.
Yeah.
What they often say to me is two things. One, I'm so glad you had something to focus on other than just me. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Two, thank you for showing me by example that I can pursue my desires as an adult. And I tell so many stories in the book that illustrate this idea that it's important for us, yes, as parents to play the role and invest in the role of being a mother, but it's also important for us to invest in the other things that we care about.
Absolutely. And now I have to ask you, you've talked about how. So how is Fired Up different from other empowering, books or self-help books? What is different about this book when a woman picks it up?
Well, these are stories of the women from all walks of life. And, I wrote this book because Moms Demand Action didn't just transform the issue of gun safety, it transformed thousands and thousands of women as activists, because when they realized their abilities, their desires, their values, they became different people. Maybe they extracted themselves from a difficult relationship. Maybe they decided to go back to school. Maybe they started their own organization. Maybe they asked for a promotion. I saw this over and over again, that when they practiced this formula for living on fire, they came alive. And so Moms Demand Action actually also became the world's largest real-life laboratory for women figuring out how to come alive. And so these stories and this information and this formula are transformative. And I think that we are finally, especially Gen X, having these conversations. They've been whisper campaigns for so long, but now we're talking out in the open about how do we live the second half of our lives.
What is one key takeaway that you hope when a woman picks this book up, they will have?
That living on fire, that asking yourself what I want, what do I want, is really a practice, and it's a discipline, and it's an exercise. And this book walks women through exactly how to figure out their values, their abilities, and their desires, then to practice starting these fires in their lives, and to bring them together with other women to help them do that in the safety of a community that supports them. I have learned so much through working with women throughout my career and through my activism, and I know that this formula changes lives. And you are not too old. It is not too late. Any time in your life, it is completely acceptable, and you will have success when you start practicing living on fire.
Shannon Watts is the founder and former president of Moms Demand Action, author of Fired Up, How to Turn Your Spark into a Flame and Come Alive at Any Age. Shannon, thank you so much for joining me today on Cold Coffee.
Thank you so much for having me.
Shannon will be in Houston Monday, June 23rd for her new release of this book, Fired Up, presented by the Brazos Bookstore, and she will be joined in conversation with Brene Brown. You can head to the Brazos Book website to find more about that event coming up June 23rd. You can also catch this episode of Cold Coffee and any of the other ones that you may have missed on our YouTube channel. And again, you're listening to News 88.7. We'll be back with more conversation. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Craig Cohen, the host of Houston Matters. Join me weekday mornings at 9 or at your leisure on your podcast feed for your daily guide to the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Greater Houston. From politics to the economy, energy to the environment, healthcare to education to transportation and beyond. If it matters to Houston, it matters to us. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts or live on the air weekdays at 9 a.m. right here on News 88.7.
Next time on Climate One, we're living through a difficult time, but there are more climate solutions on the horizon.
I had to realistically look at these attempted technological solutions because some of them could, if not solve everything magically, at least they can help.
Three big thinkers with no room for doom on the next Climate One.
Tune in Sunday morning at 6 on News 88.7.
It can be hard to stay informed about what's happening in our city, our state, and across the country. That's why Houston Public Media makes it easier.
Everything you hear on News 88.7 is powered by you, not advertisers. 80% of our funding comes from our Houston community.
That's what makes public media different. It's community funded and always here for you when you need it.
Join that community now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from Signify Business Cash by Wells Fargo. With this business credit card, cardholders can earn rewards on business purchases with no caps or categories to track. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/signify. Terms apply.
Support comes from Asia Society Texas, presenting Asia Fest, where guests of all ages can explore the different traditions and cultures of Asia through art making, food, performances, and more. Friday, June 20th at 5 p.m. asiasociety.org/Texas.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Here's Ernie Manouse, Celeste Díaz Schurman, and Frank Billingsley.
And by the way, Queen Bee Distilling did not leave samples.
Because they're not supposed to.
Straight to jail.
Straight to jail with them. Anyway, speaking of straight to jail, I don't think anyone's going to jail over this because, of course, they are two of the most powerful people on the globe. We've been talking today a bit about the Elon Musk and President Trump feud. I've got an update for you. Newsweek is reporting that Russia has offered political asylum to Elon Musk over the Trump feud.
He could go there with all his secrets.
Yeah, well, it's interesting.
And all our information.
Well,
no, thank you.
Edward, what was Edward?
Scissorhand?
No, the guy that 20 years ago.
Edward Snowden.
Edward Snowden went to Russia with all his secrets. Remember that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So why not?
We got a text about it, too. Where's the text here?
Right there. The feud between Elon and Trump, as long as they focus their heartlessness, arrogance, childishness, and corruption on each other, the citizens of the U.S. are the winners. That's Richard from Magnolia.
You know, it's funny. This happens often when we're on the air, when there's a really fun, I don't know, fun is the wrong word, salacious, that's the better word. And there's a really salacious story. I hate that I'm on the air because I want to be following it on Twitter or wherever it's happening as it unfolds. And I feel like, am I missing something here? So if you're listening right now and you're following it, if it has either of them flared out at each other, spoken up in the last couple hours, give us a call. I'd love to know what the latest is on what they're doing and saying to each other. 713-440-8870. To be a little more highbrow, we have also been talking a lot today about the event last night at the Hobby Center. That was for our major donors and supporters of the station, came out to see a sneak preview of the upcoming Ken Burns documentary, The American Revolution. It's going to air in November on PBS. You can see our interview that we had with Ken Burns and his co-director.
And speaking of Ken Burns, Ernie and I were chatting last night, and we were chatting, and Ernie has been, everybody sees Ken Burns as an icon in public media. Well,
oh God,
Ernie is our icon here at Houston Public Media,
yes.
And we started chatting. And Ernie, you and Ken go way back.
We do, and we go back so far that I sent Celeste a picture last night.
He sent me a picture.
This may have been one of our first meetings. It was at a PBS annual convention, and we were both children, as you can see from the photo. Celeste, you're having it put up where?
Yes, and so I think we sent it over to one of our production engineers, Todd, who's going to be putting it up soon. But there was a photo of it, and I was like, Ernie, how old are you in this? And how old is Ken in this photo? There it is. There it is. It's up right now. Yep, it's up online.
I'm going to guess maybe that's 1998.
Ah, okay.
So it was that long
Does that say
ago.
the Vietnam War?
Oh, no, that's the other. Oh, you're looking on chat. Yeah,
I'm
we
on
was
YouTube.
here for.
No, I'm looking on
Are
YouTube.
they
We're
showing
on
the
YouTube.
Vietnam War
They
too?
posted one of the three of you. Yeah.
Okay, that was from 2017 when
2017.
Ken visited the station previously to talk about the Vietnam War, and I got to do the talk back with him. And it was a joy, and he's always a joy to talk to. But I'm more fascinated by the picture where we're kids. So,
that was a long time. Let me ask you this:
time.
You've probably seen all of his major documentaries, and probably a lot more. What's your sort of gut feeling on the American Revolution? You saw snippets last night.
I saw snippets. It's so hard when you see snippets, and he was talking about this too, because you just drop in for a second and see part of a story.
But it was an hour of snippets, wasn't it?
But it was 10 different snippets off 6 different episodes.
Okay.
And so what the beauty of a Ken Burns documentary is you really feel like you get to know these individuals, and you hear their letters, and you hear the things that were written about them or that they actually wrote. And so you start to get invested with them. So then when a plot twist happens, or you find out they were in a battle, or you hear the mother talking about the loss of the life of her son, there's an emotional connection. When you're just seeing the snippets, you don't quite get that same impact, and Ken even addressed that.
But I do feel like last night it was incredible to see the way the documentary, and Ken specifically and his co-director Sarah, they present history in such a fascinating, Botstein, a unique way that it engages you. You just automatically find yourself listening to this historian, and that is what is so beautiful about the work that he does. I mean, it truly is legendary.
Well, and he made the point yesterday on the show here that especially of the American Revolution, you don't have a lot of pictures or paintings.
Right.
I mean, you don't have any pictures.
He said
I guess,
last night,
but even
I
the
believe
paintings
it was 1% of 1% of people in America in those days had a portrait painted.
Right.
So
and they
we
were
only
rich
see
or important.
We only see a handful of what the people looked like and who they were. So that gave him a unique set of challenges in doing this documentary was how do we represent it? And so they have reenactments, and they show letters, and they have experts speaking. So visually he finds a way to still tell the story, but it's so engaging. And so I look forward to seeing the full story. And as we mentioned before, it'll air in November over 1 week, starting on a Sunday, going through a Friday. But then after the Sunday episode, all of it will be available for binging, like we love to do these days, on the PBS app or the PBS website.
Yeah, and it was interesting last night, Ken asked us, why did we think that the colonialists dressed like Indians when they had dumped tea in Boston Harbor, right? And we all were like, well, obviously they didn't want to be identified. We thought that they were trying to cover it up, and it was such an fascinating tidbit. He actually said it was to make a statement that the colonialists were indigenous to America and that the British were not. And I had never thought about it that way. And
I wasn't taught it that way.
Exactly. And so I think that something that I got from last night's event was how we internalize history and we make it almost our own, and we land where we have landed because we want to think of it as our own narrative. But he really presents it in a very factual way, based on all of the different documentation. And they sift through thousands of archives. And,
that's why it takes 10 years to make it.
And it is fascinating.
It's funny if you've seen those videos on YouTube where it's like a statue and then someone has animated and it starts to come to life and it turns and looks at you, or a painting or something. In some ways, that's what he's doing, is he's taking these things that we have all seen as a statue or a painting of a figure that we think we know, and he brings them to life and shows it.
The other photo that Ernie was talking about, him in a T-shirt with Ken Burns, is up on our YouTube right now, so you can see those.
Look at you, Ernie.
When Ernie was just a young pup.
We've talked so much, we've almost haven't been able to tell you our last-minute plans. We've got to get a couple of them out there. I know what you're doing tonight because you're doing it with me. We are thrilled and honored to get to go to the Tommy Tune Awards and see who's going to win. I get to present. Guess what category?
What are you presenting, Ernie?
Stage manager.
Oh, a very important job.
A very important one.
That is an important one.
That is an important
one.
I wanted to give Best Actress because you know what? Our executive producer's daughter is nominated in that category and could win the award tonight.
Yes.
She was in an amazing production of Phantom of the Opera, and I'm hoping that this is her year. She's a senior, and we hope.
And that's an exciting time, and her name is Anna, and we are saying, Anna, good luck tonight. We're going to be rooting for you. The Hello Houston team is rooting for you.
Well, she had a huge social media following from her
Hannah
work there. I think she'll do very well tonight.
But we honor all of the nominees. We are not taking sides, though we want Anna.
Go Anna. Guess what I'm doing?
What are you doing?
Nothing.
Good for you. That is huge.
That's rare for Frank Billingsley.
I know. Well, we're going to Galveston, and I'm sure we'll find some kind of trouble somewhere. But we don't have any plans.
Trending this summer is the soft girl summer, which is just...
What is that?
Do
nothing?
Do nothing.
Sun and the fun?
Garden, perhaps. Garden.
Well, as always, we invite you to share yours with us. Send us your last-minute plans, or also if you have events going on over weekends and you you want to get a little more attention on them, send them our way, and we will announce them on a Friday before it happens.
We are addicted to hacks, thanks to you.
Oh. Isn't it great?
It is.
Okay.
It is. And you're the one that got me onto it because I was like, I don't really want to see that.
It's all over, so you can sit down now, or at least through the season it's all over. So you can sit down, you can binge the whole thing.
Well, we're on season 4 now. We're like two
I'm going to
episodes
start it, and I also really like watching it just like that. I know it's unpopular opinion, but
we watched the first one.
It gets better.
It does.
It gets better. They found their footing. I think they were trying to be. It just gets
just
better.
like us. I think we're wrapping up our 10th week of this show, something like
Our
that. I
10th
think we're getting.
week.
I don't know, Jim. Is that right? 10, 9?
10.
We don't know.
And just like that.
And just like that, we're out of time.
That brings us to the end of the week for Hello Houston. We want to thank you for listening and chatting and joining us. Next week, we will have Superintendent Mike Miles live in studio on Tuesday, so June 10th. So send us your questions and your comments and concerns. And we are back on Monday with more conversations. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from John Moore, helping with plumbing, electrical, and air conditioning repairs, including out-of-warranty units since 1965. Details at 730-2525 or at johnmooreservices.com.
This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 1 o'clock.
As funding for U.S. science is slashed,